I had an engagement contract with her since childhood. 1 week before the engagement, she declared, "Even if I have to marry a dog, I won't marry Romeo." Romeo she mentioned was me. So on the day of the engagement, I put a dog at the engagement banquet. I escaped from the engagement. I took a 33-hour flight to Iceland. Just got off the plane in Iceland. I couldn't wait to take out my phone and open the live stream sent by my good brother Charles. The engagement banquet was in chaos. On the stage, Rosie and a silly husky were looking at each other, gritting their teeth and clenching their fists, not daring to move. Rosie, the little princess of the Shanghai Circle, was afraid of dogs. Looking at her aggrieved look, I smiled with satisfaction. Unfortunately, the signal in Iceland was too poor, and the live stream was interrupted before I could finish watching it. Today was supposed to be my engagement banquet with Rosie. Our two families were old friends, and this marriage contract was essentially an alliance. Rosie and I had known each other since childhood and disliked each other. I had always known that Rosie was a wild one in the Shanghai Circle. She went to nightclubs to look for male models every day, hugging the waists of 18-year-old boyfriends one after another. These weren't a big deal. At most, she could find her young studs in the future while I could look for my own gentle haven. But recently, she suddenly settled down, not because of the upcoming engagement with me. She had fallen for a small online celebrity and said she had to have him. She even said that even if she had to marry a dog, she wouldn't marry me. I snorted coldly. Want to marry a dog? I'll make it happen for her. After finding a hotel in Iceland, I was exhausted. Due to the fatigue of the journey, I soaked in a hot spring first and planned to go out the next day. After booking a car on the car rental website, I went on a self-driving tour. I felt the snow pellets as big as soybeans hitting me on the glacier and also enjoyed the beauty of the sun shining on the snow-capped mountains. I felt the roar of the waterfall under Eskimogafoss, and at the foot of the mountain in Reykjavik, I just stared blankly, went hiking, and watched the sunset. Looking for women is not as good as enjoying the world. In the afternoon, the weather was a bit cloudy. I drove to the black sand beach according to the itinerary. Standing on the edge of the cliff, I was battered by the fierce wind and could only move forward by squatting on the ground. Suddenly, a big wave hit from behind, fierce and rapid. There was no time to run to the shore at all. Halfway through running, I was suddenly swept away by the sea wave and got a mouthful of seawater and black sand. I was floating in the seawater, unable to struggle. I just felt that my body had lost control and was slowly sinking. The strong will to survive forced me to crawl forward desperately. Vaguely, I heard a familiar voice, "Romeo?" For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. Rosie's face gradually became clear in the chaos. She hurried forward and grabbed my hand. After a lot of effort, Rosie bumped into my arms due to the impact. A muffled laugh came from someone's chest. We're hugging in the scene of the apocalypse. The sky, which was just overcast, now had the clouds dispersed and a ray of golden light shining down. I pushed her away, looking disgusted. "Why are you here?" Rosie's face didn't look good. She gritted her teeth and said, "I was betrayed." As expected, I had seen Rosie's little boyfriend. He was a sycophant, greedy for money and profit. Only someone as blind as Rosie couldn't see clearly. As soon as he heard that Rosie was going to get engaged to me, he quickly hooked up with a rich woman in the city. After Rosie knew she was dumped, in a fit of anger, she booked a ticket to Iceland, planning to come here to blow some air and calm down. Unexpectedly, she ran into me. I contacted the car rental company to tow the car back and then took another taxi. I was wrapped in a towel and sitting in the back seat with Rosie. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. Being dumped by two men at the same time, I wanted to comfort her but didn't know what to say. So I just patted her on the shoulder. "Sorry for your loss, Romeo. Although I've been hurt in love, it's still better than you being alone." There was a reason for this. Rosie had delicate features, a small face the size of a palm, and snow-white, tender skin. She had received so many love letters since childhood that her hands were sore. Even with the pamperedness of a rich girl, she was always the center of attention wherever she went. But I was different. I was the aloof young master in the Shanghai circle and never had many friends. I shut up silently. When the car arrived at the destination, the fare was 15,000 Icelandic kr. Opened the door for me. I sat in the car without getting out, my hands tucked in the towel, shivering with cold. Call me sister, and I'll open it for you. Do you have the money to pay the fare? I gave her a quick glance. Rosie seemed to be hit where it hurt. She was angry but dared not say anything and obediently opened the door for me. I stepped hard on her foot until I heard a shrill scream of "ow." Ha, let you know who's the boss. Everyone in the circle knew that the little princess of the Shanghai circle had no money. All her money was with her mother. Because her mother knew that her daughter was not well behaved and was afraid that she would do something to disgrace the family once she had money, Rosie's mother firmly opposed spoiling her daughter. Rosie borrowed money from me for every boyfriend she had. This also made her pretend to be good in front of me, although she had been dissatisfied with me all these years. There was a snowstorm at night. It was a bit noisy outside due to the wind. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. There was a knock on the door. Are you asleep? Rosie was holding a bowl of something, leaning against the door frame. Romeo, this is the first time I've cooked millet porridge for someone. Thank me. I looked at the black, lumpy thing in front of me and was at a loss for words. It really looked like it was the first time. She then took out some cotton swabs and alcohol from her arms and hesitated. I just saw that your hand was injured. I don't know if there are any other injuries. You can clean it yourself. If you want me to help, that's okay too. I felt a bit strange in my heart. I looked up at her and then slammed the door shut. I pressed my body tightly against the back of the door. Somewhere in my heart softened. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of Rosie. I end the dream. She wasn't that fickle, and my relationship with her wasn't bad. Until something happened later, and our relationship changed. The weather in Iceland changes every few minutes, which is comparable to the speed at which Rosie changes boyfriends. Rosie really had no money and followed me around to freeload every day. It was raining that day, and the travel plan was temporarily cancelled. At night, she and I went into a restaurant bar to eat minke whale cuisine. The decoration in the bar was a bit cozy. Some people were singing, and some were warming themselves. The atmosphere was good. I gently shook my wine glass, isolating myself in a world of my own. Romeo, let me ask you a question. Why did you run away from the wedding? Rosie opened the seasonings and handed them to me, looking up at me. I put down the glass and beckoned to her with my finger. Because I only want to inherit the family business. Isn't a man who focuses on his career attractive? But with me? Rosie was about to elaborate, but I picked up my bag to pay the bill. Insufficient balance. The cold voice of the machine made me frown. This card had been cancelled by my family. The boss was very patient, waiting for my explanation. I yanked out Rosie, who was shrinking behind me like a quail. After some negotiation, Rosie stayed as a hostage while I went to get my card. Rosie looked reluctant, grabbing my hand, her voice trembling. Brother Romeo, you must remember to come and redeem me. Good for you. You know how to adapt. The boss was a bearded foreign man, big and burly. He gave a thumbs up beside us. I didn't hesitate and turned into the rain. After that, we wandered around in the rainy Reykjavik together. The balance on the card I could use was not much, so we had to move from the hotel to a wooden house. Unfortunately, there was only one empty room. Under Rosie's silent pleading, I still let her in. The owners of the wooden house were an old French couple. After getting married, they were determined to travel around the world. Finally, they were attracted by the scenery in Iceland and settled down there. After staying in Iceland for half a month, one evening, the old lady excitedly knocked on our door, took out a bag, which contained star-shaped fireworks and a box of chocolates, and even thoughtfully prepared a lighter. She told us that she knew it was Chinese New Year. It was hard not to be touched by the kindness of strangers in a strange place. Rosie stuck her head out wearing an Arc'teryx down jacket, grinning like an idiot. Romeo, this is our first New Year's Eve together. Even before. I turned around and looked at her quietly. She immediately shut up. There shouldn't have been auroras on a cloudy day, but perhaps we were lucky. There was an aurora for 10 minutes. Rosie excitedly held the fireworks and jumped up and down in the snow. I stared blankly. My phone vibrated, and a message appeared on the screen. If you don't come back, we'll pretend we don't have you as a son. I never really had them anyway. There was only the three of them and their family. I turned off the phone, not wanting to let irrelevant people affect my mood. The magnificent light blue curtain of light was reflected in the sky, like a curled silk ribbon of light, twisting and changing into various shapes. Rosie leaned closer to me. Her fox-like eyes seemed to be seductive, with the corners slightly upturned, breathtakingly beautiful, and her gaze was fixed on my face. Our breaths intertwined, and the ambiguity reached its peak. Just as the kiss was about to land, I turned my head away mercilessly. 1,000,000 for a kiss. She stopped in time, her tongue pressing against the back of her teeth. Romeo, you're really cruel. I couldn't help but laugh. The days in Iceland were really happy and pure. After the new year, I booked a ticket back to China. There were some things that I should go back to deal with. After returning to China, I turned on my phone. The news of #the head of the Romeo family has passed away was still on the hot search. My father called, come back to attend the funeral when you've had enough fun. The voice message ended, and the phone was hung up. Oh, right. Today was Grandpa's funeral. The grandpa whom I had taken care of and accompanied for more than a year left a sentence before he died. Don't think I don't know that you're trying to please me. Don't you just think that this way I'll leave you more inheritance? After the old man passed away, when the lawyer announced the inheritance, I only got a nearly bankrupt company. After the billions of family assets were divided, my relatives looked at me like I was a joke. My father patted my shoulder. Your younger brother has been obedient and well-behaved since childhood. This is what he deserves. My mother said beside him, you were born 6 years earlier than your younger brother. You've enjoyed 6 more years. You should be content. My younger brother looked timid. Brother, actually I didn't want it either. Maybe Grandpa just liked me more. However, since graduating, I had been working hard in the Romeo family to expand the family business. Most of the achievements now were due to my efforts. Why should I be willing to accept this? I went back home and changed into a wine-red suit that I rarely wore. Funeral? It doesn't matter. I'll attend it in full dress. Brother, why are you dressed like this? Ryan looked at me with a bit of reproach on his face. I know you're a bit dissatisfied with Grandpa, but Grandpa has passed away. My younger brother, Ryan. He was also the biggest beneficiary of the inheritance. My father immediately walked up to me and slapped me hard. You're embarrassing us. I covered my face and looked at them as if they were strangers. Amid the dizziness, Rosie rushed out from somewhere, reached out to support me, with a worried look on her face. Romeo. I stood there quietly, being hugged by her. Rosie, let's go. Quite a few media were invited to this funeral, and the farce at the funeral was widely spread on the internet. In the car, Rosie hesitated several times, wanting to say something but holding back. Want to ask something? I glanced at her. Was it because of them that you didn't go abroad with me back then? Yes. Back then, my memory slowly drifted back to the past. Rosie and I actually had a very close relationship before. We were childhood sweethearts, envied by others. Since we were of the same age, we went to the same school. We had made an agreement to go abroad to study together after the college entrance examination. On the day I got the offer from Cambridge, Rosie also called, excitedly saying, Romeo, I've received the offer from Cambridge. Everything was going smoothly until my parents told me that Grandpa was seriously ill. I threw away that offer and applied to a university in the city after taking the college entrance examination. Grandpa was strict with me, but I felt that he was the only elder in the family who cared about me. He was strict with me because I was the heir of the Romeo family in the future. To leave no regrets, I wanted to stay by his side during his last days. On the day of parting, I took the dog that Rosie and I had raised together to see her off. In the reluctant eyes of the husky, she asked me begrudgingly, Romeo, do you have anything else to say? I lowered my eyes and chuckled, wish you a pleasant study abroad. Humph, even the dog is more affectionate than you. So, I watched her go through the security check. Being in the Shanghai circle, Rosie's romantic affairs abroad were spread in China, and her mother cut off her pocket money in a fit of anger. She didn't avoid letting me know about those behaviors, she even asked me to borrow money to date. It's not that I wasn't affected, but I had no right to do anything. That night, with Grandpa's words still lingering in my mind, I parked my car downstairs at Rosie's place. For a moment, I hoped that this person could accompany me as before and catch this broken me. However, unexpectedly, a figure got out of the Rolls-Royce in front. She was slender and charming. A tall and straight young man in light gray sportswear was standing in front of her. It was a completely different style from mine. Rosie was leaning on the car door, and the two were kissing passionately. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful, looking very harmonious. My heart cooled down. I watched without blinking, and my hands didn't stop moving. I silently took off the ring that Rosie had bought for me at a sky-high price. Along with the words, "With you, I found everything." Rosie took me to her villa on the hillside. The decoration of the villa was in European style, looking as if no one had ever lived in it. Rosie walked into the kitchen quite consciously, rolling up her sleeves to her elbows. "There are only some noodles left by the aunt in the fridge. I'll add some tomatoes and eggs. Is that okay?" I gave a soft The smoke started to rise. Someone's movements were very skillful. The former Rosie couldn't cook. The pampered princess of the Shanghai circle had also learned to cook. A senior executive of the company called, "President Romeo, we'll support whatever you want to do." My hand tapped lightly on the table and I said, "Since you've given me a company that's about to collapse, then let's make it go public." Did a group of people think that I had no backup plan? The steaming tomato and egg noodles were served, looking delicious and tempting. "Romeo, have a taste?" Rosie handed me a chopstick of noodles as if showing off a treasure, her eyes shining. This was our daily routine. We tacitly didn't mention the past and also tacitly went on as before. Rosie hugged me, burying her head in my neck and breathing gently. "Romeo, do you know that I've been longing for this embrace for a long time?" I wanted to push her away, but she hugged me tighter and tighter. I knew that this embrace had always been impossible to refuse. Half-hearted, we were in a constant tug-of-war. I actually had an indescribable feeling budding inside me. The bedroom light was turned on, there was a transparent glass bathroom door, a bathtub twice as big, and a full-length mirror in front of the bathtub. The packaging of an umbrella was thrown in the trash can. I sobered up and pushed her away with an unexpected burst of strength. "Rosie, I should go home." The movements of the person on me stopped. The movements of the person on me stopped. "Romeo." That was in the past. It could have been anyone. Now that the misunderstanding is cleared up, it has to be you. Rosie's Adam's apple bobbed as she stared at me intently. I looked away. "Rosie, it's time to let go." Rosie sighed, "I'll take you back." "No. Romeo, don't be silly." The online hot search exploded again. Major overhaul of Romeo family's senior management. Hashtag Rosie family terminates relevant cooperation with Romeo family. Hashtag the little princess of Rosie family personally steps in to protect her husband. Hashtag investors of Romeo family's cooperation partners withdraw their funds. Some things were within my expectation, while others were unexpected. I clicked on the second one. At a certain press conference, Rosie said to the news media, "As we all know, Romeo is my fiancé, ma. If the Romeo family doesn't like Romeo, then of course I'll also consider whether it's necessary to cooperate with the Romeo family." "Rosie," I murmured silently. The phone screen showed an incoming call. It was my father in name. "What are you doing?" "Taking away the company's senior management. Do you think you can save your shabby company?" His voice was extremely loud, and anger filled his tone. I casually held the phone away from my ear. "Don't rush. This is just the beginning. If your grandpa knew that you were ruining his life's work like this, his spirit in heaven would be angry too." I actually hoped that the old man could take a good look at how his life's work was being ruined. These days, I had been looking for new cooperation partners, and I had been devoting all my time to the current company. With the addition of the veteran employees of the Rosie family, things were going more smoothly. The secretary pushed open the door of my office. "President Rosie, there's a drinking party at 7 o'clock tonight with the investors." I stood up and put on my coat. "Let's go." Several investors and the senior management of our company were sitting together, toasting each other with polite refusals. Most of the toasts were blocked by the secretary for me. At this time, an out-of-tune voice said in an awkward tone, "President Romeo, how can you not drink when doing business?" The man had a high-bridged nose, bright red and moist lips, and amber eyes that looked misty, showing an innocent look. He was snuggling up to a middle-aged woman who was past her prime, flattering her. His words were clearly hinting at something. Unexpectedly, I could meet an acquaintance here. This man was one of Rosie's many ex-boyfriends, Jack. He used to pester Rosie to get a lot of resources, and now he was a popular young star. The woman next to Jack pinched his fingertips and laughed angrily. "We're discussing business. How can we make President Romeo lose face?" The insinuation was clear enough for the smart people present to understand. For a moment, everyone looked at me. I took my wine glass generously, curved my lips into a smile. "Since we're going to cooperate in the future, then we should have a good drink." Jack looked at me smugly and didn't miss any chance to toast me. One after another, the glasses of wine went down my throat, and my head began to feel a little dizzy. Until the end of the drinking party, I asked the secretary to see the guests off to their cars, and I went to the toilet by myself. As soon as I came out, I saw Rosie leaning against the wall, with a somewhat accusatory tone. "Romeo, are you so desperate now? Having dinner with a group of old women. Wouldn't it be easier to get the investment if you had dinner with me?" I didn't vomit during the drinking party, but now my stomach was churning uncomfortably. "Rosie, now that you have money, pay back the money you borrowed before first." Someone looked a bit unnatural, and her tone dropped. "I just returned to the Rosie family. They haven't paid me my salary yet." I straightened up. "Also, keep your ex-boyfriends who have no sense of propriety in check." "Romeo, are you jealous? Those were just for fun. You know that." Rosie walked up to me, obediently trying to please me. Too lazy to waste words with Rosie, I was about to leave straight away. "Romeo, dare you say you have a clear conscience about what happened back then?" Rosie shouted from behind. "Of course. I have a guilty conscience." A few days before we separated, Rosie was even happily preparing a proposal ceremony for me. Because she once said that the person she, the princess of the Shanghai Circle, liked must be announced to the whole world. That fool thought I didn't know, but I knew it a long time ago. I knew that she secretly looked at various online proposal plans. After looking at them, she would even comment, "Damn it, another way is blocked by you guys." If I hadn't chosen so-called family affection back then. After that day, Jack disappeared from the public eye and several investors also generously brought over the money. But these things didn't affect me much. My good brother Charles sent me a message. "Romeo, will the Romeo family continue to withdraw their funds?" After I left, Ryan entered the senior management of the Rosie family and was now trying his best to save the Romeo family. Actually, what they didn't know was that I was the behind-the-scenes investor of some projects. As long as I withdrew my funds, many projects would have to be stopped, withdrawn. Okay. Rubbing my temples, the Rosie family problem was solved. The phone rang again. This time it was a private call. "Brother-in-law, our Rosie sister is drunk in the club and is clamoring to see you." The person speaking should be Rosie's little brother. It sounded quite noisy in the background. I hesitated for a while and then drove over. There were quite a few people in the box. The little princess was quite arrogant. She stepped on a chair and threw a bottle of wine worth hundreds of thousands on the table. "Whoever goes to get Romeo for me will get this bottle of wine." A group of little followers were protecting her, afraid that the little princess would fall. As soon as I pushed the door open, I heard this unexpectedly. I walked over. "I'm here myself." "Will you give it to me?" Rosie's eyes were still a bit dazed. She slumped on the chair. "You don't like me anymore. Why are you here?" Before I could say anything, she continued, "Before, Which man would dare to treat this princess like this? Except you. That's right. Before, those men were following Rosie for money and resources. Romeo, you're neither gentle nor kind, nor considerate. You abandoned me. I don't care about you anymore. Yes, Rosie's ex-boyfriends were all gentle and considerate, calling her sister this and sister that. Don't ask me how I know. When Rosie used to borrow money from me, sometimes I could even hear a man's voice beside her. As she was talking, her eyes started to turn red. This princess just cares about you. My mind was a bit chaotic. Seeing that her followers chose to quietly leave the box, I stood still, staring blankly at the once arrogant person who was suddenly looking aggrieved. Just as I was about to speak, I saw Rosie's body falling backwards. Rosie! She lost consciousness. When I held her, I found that her wrist was red. For a moment, my mind went blank. Could this person be allergic to alcohol? I rushed the person to the hospital overnight. Just as I entered the hospital, Rosie's mother arrived right after. There was some nervousness on Mrs. Xie's face as she asked me, "Is my daughter okay?" I shook her hand and only then realized that my hand was sweaty from being scared. I lowered my eyes and said, "She's okay. The doctor has taken her for gastric lavage." Mrs. Xie quickly calmed down and looked at me politely. "Romeo, you've grown up under my watch. Although my daughter has finally started to take over the Rosie family because of you, I'm still grateful for that." She paused slightly, "But after all, she is the heir of the Rosie family. I won't allow her to act recklessly. Your relationship with the Rosie family won't be of any help to her future development. You'd better stay away from her in the future." I nodded indifferently, got up, greeted her, and left. Indeed, there was no reason to see her again. The company I took over was thriving, but for some reason, I felt empty inside. Coincidentally, the secretary came to report the itinerary. Suddenly, I recalled the night when Rosie got drunk. Tell me, do the minor stars in the entertainment industry smell better than the women in the circle? The young secretary blushed. "Brother Romeo, why are you thinking about these things? As a handsome and successful CEO, it's not too much to ask for a minor star, right?" So I looked at a minor star on the random wallpaper of the desktop computer, pointed casually, and said, "It's her." The young secretary understood immediately and went down in a fluster to complete the task. This minor star was called Lily. She was neither too popular nor too unknown, and she had a cute appearance. A few days later, when the young secretary brought her to me, I was still a bit surprised. She was even more delicate in person than on the screen. Under her curved eyebrows were a pair of dark and clear deer-like eyes, bright and innocent. She had a small and delicate mouth with bright red and moist lips, and dimples appeared on her fair and tender cheeks. She looked a bit mischievous and naughty. "Do you know what you're supposed to do by following me?" I reclined lazily on the swivel chair. Lily's ears turned red, and a faint pink showed through her flawless fair skin. "I'll do whatever brother says." Her tone was just right, neither too light nor too heavy. That one brother made me feel all tingly. No wonder Rosie liked to spend money on hiring people. Isn't this more comfortable than any romantic relationship? After getting along with her, I found that Lily was good at both singing and dancing. However, her former company had someone they wanted to promote, and plus Lily didn't understand the ways of the world, so she was left out in the cold. So I asked the secretary to sign her over, found someone to set up a personal studio for her. I gave her both money and resources, and Lily's worth increased a lot. She had so many schedules that when she finally had some free time, Lily pouted and said she wanted to eat hot pot. I pushed aside my work to accompany her. Lily's face was red from eating, and her watery eyes blinked. "Brother, someone is looking at me over there." I followed Lily's gaze and saw Rosie a few tables away. Rosie was staring fixedly at us, and when our eyes met suddenly, her eyes seemed to be spitting fire. "Brother, I'm scared." Lily moved her body towards me aggrievedly, pursing her lips. I reached out and put my arm around her, feeling a bit itchy inside. "Don't be afraid. Brother is here." Lily took the opportunity to snuggle into my arms, saying happily, "It's so nice to eat hot pot with brother." Rosie suddenly appeared from somewhere, grabbed Lily's collar, and shouted angrily, "Get out! Rosie, let go!" I tried to pull Rosie's hand away. Rosie stared at me coldly and questioned me, "Romeo, when you were with me, you could have anything. What can she give you?" "She can give me what you can't." Seeing the light in Rosie's eyes fading little by little, I pulled Lily and turned to leave. That night, Lily, who had just taken a bath, climbed onto my bed, her eyes bright. "Brother, you're so nice." As she said that, she kept wriggling closer to me, being a bit too enthusiastic. The next day, I held my waist and thought to myself, the little girl is really full of energy. So I asked the secretary to add some schedules for Lily. I was at work when Charles sent me a link. The little princess of the Shanghai Circle is suspected of falling in love with Ryan, the second young master of the Romeo family. Just after reading it, the phone rang. Charles got straight to the point. "What's the situation between you and her now?" "It's over. The Romeo family probably has no other way. They asked Ryan to seduce Rosie." The person on the other end of the phone clicked his tongue. I looked up at the time and frowned. "I'll hang up first. I have something to do." A few days ago, Lily told me that there would be a concert of hers tonight and that I couldn't be absent. For this matter, she reminded me several times every day. The concert venue was a bit far from the company, and there was traffic jam all the way when I drove there. When I arrived at the entrance, I saw a group of fans holding merchandise, queuing up to take pictures with the posters outside the door. The ticket Lily left for me was in the front row, and soon a staff member came to arrange things. Lily on the stage was shining brightly, singing and dancing in her stage costume. All I could hear were various shouts, like, "Sister, you're killing me." After one set, there was a short break. Lily went on stage with a microphone. "I want to dedicate the next song to a special person. It's he who gave me the chance to stand here." As she was speaking, Lily was scanning the audience area here intentionally or unintentionally. My heart started beating like a drum in an instant. "Kiss Me, Jay." It was an English song. I couldn't hear the lyrics clearly, but this line was especially clear. At the end, Lily's gaze passed through the lights and she mouthed the word, "Brother." My heart trembled. The concert was still going on, but I didn't have the mood to listen anymore. When it ended, I got up and left my seat. It was drizzling outside. In a daze, a car was speeding towards me. "Brother!" Someone pushed me away from behind violently. Lily was knocked down on the ground, and the car quickly fled the scene. I held her and shouted frantically, "Someone? Come here." Lily was in a coma in the hospital for a few days and was temporarily out of danger. I asked the secretary to investigate the car accident, then I received a text message on my phone, "Brother, just take this as a small lesson." I clenched my phone and ordered the secretary, "Suppress all the enterprises of the Romeo family." After thinking for a moment, I added, "What kind of treatment did you give Lily?" "Give her a raise." The secretary stammered, "Brother Romeo, Sister Lily didn't ask for anything. When I found her, she agreed without hesitation." I was puzzled. "Didn't you give her too much?" The secretary lowered his head, "No." I waved my hand to let him leave. Lily was lying on the bed with a pale face at the moment. I gently stroked her usually lively face. Lily was trying to open her eyes in a daze. "Brother." I kissed her gently. "Yes, I'm here." In the 5th year of being with Lily, she won the Best Actress award in the entertainment industry. At the award ceremony, she confessed her love to me in tears. We hugged each other under the witness of everyone. From then on, I decided that she would be the only one by my side in the future. And Rosie got engaged to my younger brother Ryan because of the Rosie family. The Romeo family climbed up to the Rosie family and had some limelight for a while, but they were restricted by the Rosie family everywhere. By this time, I was able to break away from the Romeo family and held a grand wedding for Lily. It was said that on that day, the little princess of the Shanghai Circle was so angry that her eyes were red as she threw a tantrum at the people around her. However, all of these had nothing to do with me. I had already found my true love.